Do you like the look of triangles and quilts but have trouble figuring out seam allowances? Or maybe you're tired of using templates for cutting out this shape. Never fear, help is here. In this video you'll learn about quick cutting methods for some of these popular quilting triangles. And last but not least, you'll get some tips for troubleshooting some common errors. To cut and sew perfect triangles, it's important to note that the grain lines of your fabric play a big role in ensuring your success. The fabric's grain lines are usually marked with directional arrows. Any side without these lines falls on the bias. Whenever possible, you want the sides of your triangle to fall on the straight of grain or cross grain as marked by these lines. Unlike the square where all of the sides fall on the straight of grain or cross grain, triangles only have one or two sides that fall on the grain line. These edges stretch when pulled and can cause distortion in your block. Quilters should take extra care when handling the bias. Don't push or pull when pressing. Use up and down motions. When sewing, gently move the tips through the machine. Don't pull when stitching, or your piece won't lie flat. The most common triangle used in quilts is the half-square triangle, or HST. When two of these are sewn together, they'll form a perfect square. You can use a square cut on the grain lines to make two of these triangles. The formula used to figure out the cutting size is to add 7/8 of an inch to one of the shorter sides. I have a block here with triangles, so I want to measure one of these shorter sides, and I see that it's about 2 inches. Add 7/8 of an inch and I get 2 7/8 inches. I'll cut a square 2 7/8 inches and then I'll cut on the diagonal. You'll end up with 2 half-square triangles with 1/4 inch seam allowances included. Quarter square triangles look like half-square triangles. The difference is where the bias lie. The bias is on the longest side of a half-square triangle. The bias is on the 2 shorter sides of quarter-square triangles. I'm using this block as an example to show you the difference between these two triangles. Quilters always want the straight of grain on the outside edges. So in this corner you would put half-square triangles, and on these sides you're going to put quarter-square triangles. To cut quarter-square triangles, you need to add 1 1/4 inches to the longest side. To figure out how big to cut this, you'll need to measure this distance. It's about 3 inches. Add 1 1/4 inches to that measurement, so you come up with 4 1/4 inches. Cut a square on the straight of grain and cross grain, 4 1/4 inches, and then cut both of the diagonals. You'll end up with 4 quarter square triangles. An equilateral triangle has 3 equal sides and 3 60-degree angles in each corner. I bring this up because in order to cut these triangles, you need to find the 60-degree lines on your mat or on your rotary ruler. To cut an equilateral triangle, you measure the finished size of the height of your triangle. So on this triangle, I would measure from here to here, not the sides, but the height, and then add 1/2 of an inch for seam allowances. If I want to sew a 3-inch equilateral triangle, I need to cut a strip 3 1/2 inches wide. Mats and rulers vary, so I'll go through a couple different ways to cut. You'll have to decide which works best with your type of equipment. Here's my 60-degree line. Here's another 60-degree line. And so if your mat has lines like this and you're cutting equilateral triangle, line up your strip on the mat line. Make sure you put the edge on the corner and cut. Move to the other side and cut. To cut a second triangle, take your piece, flip it over, line it up with this line, and continue cutting. What if your mat only has one 60-degree line? You want to make sure that your strip's on the mat line. And then let's see, we can pull this back a little. You want the edge lined up here. Line up your ruler and cut. After you cut one edge, you'll want to flip this over, line up your strip with the lines on the mat, line up this point with the 60-degree line, and then cut. Let's say you don't have a 60-degree line on your mat, but you have one on your ruler. So you want to take your strip, line it up on the mat line, take your ruler, locate the 60-degree line, here it is, line that 60-degree line up with your strip, scoot it over to the end, and cut. Take your strip, line it up with the ruler's 60-degree line, bring the ruler over to this point, and cut. The next triangles on the agenda are usually found in a square like this. This center piece is an isosceles triangle because it has two equal sides. It often gets confused with an equilateral triangle, but notice that the bottom of the isosceles is much shorter. To figure out the cutting size, you need to measure the square or the height of this triangle, which in this case is 3 inches, and you add 7/8 to that measurement. So 3 plus 7/8 inches means that you'll need to cut a square that is 3 7/8 inches. After your square has been cut, fold the square in half and mark that midpoint. Line up your ruler with the center and the corner and cut. Repeat on the other side. Here's my completed isosceles triangle. These long skinny triangles are called right-angled scalene triangles. None of the sides are equal. In order to cut these triangles, you need to add 3/4 of an inch to this measurement from the center to the side and 1 1/4 inches to the side of the square. Half of 3 inches is 1.5 inches. You'll add 3/4 to that and you come up with 2.25 inches. This side of the square is 3 inches. You'll add 1.25 inches to that. You come up with 4.25 inches. You'll need to cut a rectangle 2.25 by 4.25 inches. Here's that rectangle cut on the diagonal, and you'll notice that both of these triangles are the same. In order to make this square, you'll need triangles that are the mirror image of each other. So in order to get those triangles, you have to cut 2 rectangles. Cut one on this diagonal and the other one on this diagonal, and you'll end up with pieces that are mirror images of each other. Another way to do this is to take your rectangles, put right sides together, and then cut on the diagonal. And here are the 2 sets. Other names for half-square triangles and quarter-square triangles are corner-setting triangles and side-setting triangles. These are the triangles you'll need when setting your blocks on point. You want to make sure that the straight of grain and cross grain are on these outside edges. The cutting formulas for setting triangles are the same as for half-square triangles and quarter-square triangles. You add 7/8 of an inch to one of the shorter sides, and you add 1.25 inches to the longest side. Unfortunately, you have to do a little bit more math to finish out these cutting sizes. For example, you don't know how long the short sides are, so you first have to use this formula in order to find those sizes. Too much math for you? Here's a faster way to get the cutting sizes. Divide the finished size of your block by 1.414 and then add 7/8 seam allowance. To find the cutting size for these side-setting triangles, you want to multiply your block by 1.414 and then add 1.25 inch seam allowance. Still too much math? You might want to look to the internet for cutting sizes. Type in setting triangles. And last but not least, if you find you're having trouble with any of these methods, you can always go back to a template. As a matter of fact, whenever I start a big project using a new technique, I always draw out the block or section that's new and I make templates. This way I can double check my cutting and sewing. Sometimes I find that I just can't get it right no matter what I do, especially when dealing with these long, skinny scalene triangles. When this happens, I revert to paper piecing, as the paper foundation helps me deal with that stretchy bias. Sewing on the printed lines eliminates the need to worry about being precise with my seam allowances. Paper piecing is also great for those irregular triangles. You can find more information about this along with free patterns under our Beginner Basics tab. Scroll down and click on Paper Piecing. Hope you decide to try out some of these techniques on your next project with triangles. If you're interested in finding more quick cutting methods, follow the links listed below. Thanks for visiting LearnHowToQuilt.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share our videos with your friends. Thanks.